So, welcome everyone to another episode of Pros Pro Bono Meets the Volunteers. So, this series in which we're meeting some of the most prominent volunteers from the program, people who've given the most in terms of translation or in terms of belonging to any of our other ambassador or ninja or crew levels. And today I'm delighted to welcome Yuna Guillermo, who is originally from, well, tell us where you're from, Yuna.
I grew up in Brittany, but my mom's Welsh. So I grew up in a trilingual household in Brittany and then went on to study in Germany and ended up in Turkey now.
Right, well, you still have a trace of a Welsh accent, which I find completely intriguing, especially when you talk about your mother. It comes out especially then. So, okay, you said trilingual. Tell me, what were the three languages?
So we spoke Breton, English, and French at home. Originally only Breton and English, but my big sisters speak French among themselves, and so French became part of the household too.
So what was the language you spoke to your mother?
I speak English with mom and Breton with dad. I grew up in the Diwan movement where we were working on preserving the language.
Okay.
So my dad learned Breton as an adult because his parents, my grandparents, skipped their generation in transmitting the language.
Tell us a little bit about your journey as a translator.
So I started studying in Germany, and I started studying law, and that wasn't for me. And then I started studying tourism, and I didn't make it through that either. And at some point, I came back to France, to Alsace, and studied languages. And while I was studying languages, one of the ladies, which was a little bit older and studying with us as a second university studies, was having a hard time with all the translations she had, and decided to ask me if I'd do some of them. And together we discovered that I have a real talent for understanding technical texts and what they're about, and translating them into French. So that was the start of my career as a translator. And then I went to a Pros.com powwow and met my second mentor, who also coached me into becoming a better translator. And now it's been 17 years.
17, okay. And you've been freelance all of that time?
Yes.
Okay,
because I don't have a formal education in translation, I've never dared apply for a position anywhere.
Okay, and you translate from English and from German into French?
That's right. Okay. And now from Turkish into French.
Of course, because now you live in Turkey. That's one bit of the story we didn't mention. So that takes us through your journey as a translator, and then it's some divine spark pushed you towards Pros Pro Bono, which is very lucky for us. Can you tell us about what happened, how you came across the program?
Well, divine spark, Mr. Andrew Morris made a post on Facebook, and it spoke to me, and I was on board from the very beginning. I just thought that was something that was worth the effort. I am a person that prefers giving rather than taking. So I'll always try to be of help wherever I can.
So you began translating, and then somewhere along the line, so in the last, maybe we're now approaching our second year, maybe in the second of those 2 years, after doing lots of translation for us, you became more prominent on different crews, so our committees like the onboarding crew, and you're very active on the WhatsApp group, and you often come to our open house meetings. What prompts you to play this extracurricular role beyond just getting on and translating?
That's a good question. I've never thought of it myself so deeply. I feel there's a need, so I go where the need is. And it's fun. The atmosphere is, it's lively, and the fact that we all help each other, that everyone has something different to give, and that we all work together for the best result, is something that we don't have in our day-to-day as a translator, especially because I mostly work with agencies. So I never get to have any feedback from a reviewer unless it's very, very negative. The loop of us all working together and collaborating towards the best result is something that is very precious to me, and that I've come to rely on as something that makes my daily life better.
And I notice from watching your correspondence, because you often review other people's texts, that it's a role you take very seriously, very professionally. So how has that come about? You found yourself in this kind of reviewer role. What is attractive about that, rather than, as many people would like to do, doing the translation where you have complete control? Now you're dealing with somebody else's text, and you're kind of coming in and having to do all the diplomacy, plus the correction and everything else. So what do you like about that role?
It's something that's very new for me because I've never done it before. And I never studied translations per se, so I didn't have that at uni either. What's fun for me is that I get to see how other people translate, see how other people understand texts differently than I would, and try to find a middle ground between what they've understood and what I've understood. And it's a completely different exercise. And it's very, very good brain gymnastics. And on the other hand, it's very satisfying when you're reviewing an experienced colleague who does everything right. And it's another type of satisfaction to be able to go to a less experienced colleague and say, well, look, this is somewhere where maybe you could have done better because this, that, and the other. Maybe they relied too much on machine translation. Maybe they forgot the way syntax is different in languages and flows differently in languages. And it feels like I'm helping those translators better themselves too, as well as making their translations slightly better. I'm maybe making their future translations better too.
I'm sure that's true. Have you been reviewed yourself on multiple occasions, or have you mostly been a reviewer?
So I was reviewed on the Choosing Earth project, which was gigantic.
Right, yeah, that was a book.
And that was a very interesting collaboration because I was being reviewed by a French teacher who had a much more profound knowledge of the French language than I. Right. And I learned a lot.
Right.
And I've been reviewed on a few newspaper articles too for Progressive International. And it's always been constructive. I've always learned something, and that's what I try to give back when I review. I try to give someone the incentive and the motivation to look at what they've done and maybe try to do better next time.
Great. Well, you're doing a very good job. You're setting the bar very high, because I've seen you give detailed notes to translate this, but I think it's an extremely important thing. And I think that's one of the something which began as a quality control measure within our program has actually become something much deeper than that. It's become more about collaboration, about professional development, even personal development in some contexts. Well, I'm very glad that you're enjoying the program. I'm very glad that you're able to give so much time to it, and for bringing your dulcet Welsh, Breton, English accent to this conversation. But look forward to working with you and the entire team from September and for the next many years, hopefully.
Well, thanks for having me.
My pleasure.